This is a Mountain News special report. (2006), the year in review. From our studios in Hazard, here's Steve Hensley and Danielle Morgan.
Hello everyone and welcome to this special edition of Mountain News 2006, the year in review. Over the next half hour, we'll look back at some of the stories that grabbed our attention and our hearts during the past year.
There were certainly several, but first, for our top story of the year, we go to the coal mines. One of several accidents killed 5 men alone, and now safety laws have changed nationwide.
Just 4 months after 12 miners died in Sago, West Virginia, Kentucky had a similar bone-chilling disaster.
Breaking news out of Harlan County, the tragic news today that 5 coal miners have lost their lives after an explosion early this morning. It happened at the Darby Mine number 1 just after midnight near the Holmes Mill community of Harlan County.
Very pleased that the rescue teams were here very quickly, and because of that, we saved the life of one miner.
The foreman, Eamon Cotton Brock, along with Jimmy Lee, Paris Thomas Jr., Roy Middleton, and Bill Petrie, died underground May 20th.
You just could hear people saying no, no, crying. Just heartbreak.
They was all good men, just trying to support their families.
Sole survivor was Paul Ledford. He spent the remainder of the year supporting the widows and family members left behind. Despite picketing outside for hours, widows of the miners were locked out of state investigation interviews.
What do they not want us to hear? And they're worried about their witnesses? Okay, these are all witnesses to dead bodies that are not going to be coming back home. I'm really, really hurt.
We shared in honoring all of the recent Harlan County fallen miners in a memorial that drew national attention.
I'd say that every man that goes in a mines, if he comes out the next day, he's pretty lucky.
It's those concerns that pushed legislators to make legal changes in hopes of making miners safer.
What went wrong here can be corrected and other families can be spared the sorrow and the agony that they've been going through.
Well, now let's take a look at some of the other top local stories from 2006.
And we begin with a string of deadly plane crashes across the state.
And I saw over the hillside, I saw the flash of light and then the explosion.
A tragic day in Kentucky. A passenger plane crashes near Bluegrass Airport this morning, killing 49 people. Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve. 49 people gone in an instant. Early on a Sunday morning in August after a plane went down the wrong runway at Bluegrass Airport. Most of the victims were from Kentucky. Among those with East Kentucky ties, newlyweds just married the night before, a couple going on vacation, a respected businessman and his business partner, and a mom-to-be. Only one person, the co-pilot, survived. The very next day, a plane carrying a family of 7 from Texas went down in the mountains of Breathitt County. All 7 died. They were coming to Hazard for a family reunion. The NTSB says bad weather was a factor in the crash. Less than a week after that crash, another one in Pike County that killed a pilot from North Carolina. 5 people, including 3 children, died after a fire ripped through a mobile home in March. Investigators say a cigarette is to blame.
Now to live in heaven with God.
2 men are still recovering after a gas line explosion in June blew up an apartment in Perry County. It was the first death penalty verdict in Floyd County in more than 20 years. James Hunt was found guilty of murdering his wife more than 2 years ago. In Pike County, Kevin Rowe was sentenced to life in prison for killing a woman and injuring her husband on an ATV trail. Another Pike County murder trial had a much different outcome. A jury found Corey Cheney not guilty in the murder of Greg Fleming, which led to this outburst from the victim's sister.
This is not right!
Joyce.
My shoe! You forgot my shoe!
Joyce.
Murderer!
A Martin County man is accused of leading police on a 2-day manhunt after he allegedly shot 3 people, killing 2 of them. An attorney for Billy Sarton, also known as William Starr, claims he is a very sick man. A Laurel County woman was charged with trying to sell an undercover officer 2 of her own children and offering to get pregnant with a 3rd child, all in exchange for drugs. Amanda Marksberry is now serving a 7-year sentence. A Pulaski County woman is accused of driving her car into Lake Cumberland with her 2 children inside. Wainema Worley's 8-year-old son, Dylan, drowned. Johnny Epperson admitted to helping someone else kill former Harlan County Sheriff Paul Browning Jr. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison and will cooperate with prosecutors.
At this time, I'd like to say that I am innocent.
After teasing the media and police while hiding in the mountains for 2 months, Eddie Baker Sr. was finally caught and later pleaded guilty to federal drug and weapons charges. 2 former Clay County officials also face federal drug charges. Former Assistant Manchester Police Chief Todd Roberts and former 911 Director Vernon Hacker were allegedly part of a conspiracy to sell $1 million worth of cocaine and prescription pills. Another man, Bobby Joe Curry, has already pleaded guilty in the case. Operation Unite continued its war on drugs, this year targeting specific drug-infested neighborhoods. More Kentucky soldiers died in Iraq in 2006. 2 were buried in Laurel County, Sergeant First Class Lance Scott Cornett and Sergeant First Class Charles Jason Jones. A Floyd County native, Lance Corporal John Thornsberry, was only in Iraq 26 days before he was killed. He leaves behind a wife and young daughter. Hundreds of National Guard soldiers were on the move in 2006. There was a special send-off for one group known as the Mountain Warriors. This marked the largest deployment of Kentucky troops since World War II.
They're proud soldiers that are well-trained that make us proud.
Other troops returned from Iraq this year, while even more were sent to Arizona to help secure the U.S.-Mexico border. The weather turned deadly in central Kentucky after flash flooding in September. 2 young women, including a Martin County native, were swept away by floodwaters in Lexington. High winds caused lots of problems in April in Pike County. A huge billboard was nearly knocked to the ground and homes were damaged.
And it just tore it all apart. It just ripped it all apart.
There were more problems at the state's largest facility for the mentally disabled in Somerset as more citations were issued, but by year's end, a task force concluded positive changes were being made at Oakwood. The University of the Cumberlands was thrown into the national spotlight in April after a student was expelled for admitting he was gay on a popular website. An area near Somerset is now on the short list of sites being considered for a biolab where scientists would research animal diseases and biological material. Some say it would create an economic explosion, while others have safety concerns. The Appalachian Regional Commission held its annual fall conference in Pikeville this year. Among the main topics, adventure tourism and using energy more efficiently. And who could forget Kitty, the 500-pound pet lion who was removed from a Floyd County neighborhood after the fiscal court passed an ordinance banning exotic animals. Well, the year ended on a sad note for the Kentucky State Police family. For the first time in nearly 18 years, a trooper was killed in the line of duty. Jonathan Leonard died after investigators say he turned in front of another car while responding to a non-emergency call on US 119 in Sydney. The other driver, Eugene Cisco Jr., was seriously injured. Hundreds attended Leonard's funeral at Belfry High School. Less than a week later, Detective Joey Howard, who also worked for Post 9 in Pikeville, died of an apparent heart attack. Straight ahead, a look at the year's top stories across the nation and around the world.
From the war in Iraq to Vice President Dick Cheney's hunting accident, we'll have a look back at the biggest stories when 2006 The Year in Review continues.
Now look at stories that captured our attention across the nation.
From the quiet fields of Amish country to the coal mines of West Virginia, it was certainly a year to remember. CBS's Drew Levinson has our look back.
For the coal mining families living in Sago, West Virginia, it was a disastrous start to the new year. 12 men died after a mine explosion there. Adding to the horror was a miscommunication that brought hope to the families.
They had everybody up there believing they were all alive except for one.
But only one miner, Randall McCloy, survived. In Texas, Vice President Dick Cheney went quail hunting and managed to pepper a friend with shotgun pellets. Fortunately, Harry Whittington suffered only minor injuries. In North Carolina, major damage was inflicted on the Duke University lacrosse team after a party turned ugly. A stripper hired for the event accused several players of sexually assaulting her, but the credibility of the woman has been questioned and the case has yet to go to trial. In May, thousands of illegal immigrants made their case for legalization, and Congress apparently heard them. But so far, lawmakers have not found common ground on immigration reform.
I was with Jean Benet when she died.
In August, it appeared the decade-old Jean Benet Ramsey murder case had been solved. Police in Thailand arrested 41-year-old John Carr after he reportedly confessed to murdering the 6-year-old. But after the suspect was brought back to the U.S., prosecutors said despite his bravado, his DNA did not match that found at the scene, and no charges would be filed. Spinach proved to be fatal for 3 people this year. A deadly strain of E. coli traced to cattle feces also sickened another 200 people. It led to a nationwide recall of bagged spinach that has since been lifted. In Washington, the cover was lifted on the secret emails of former Representative Mark Foley to congressional pages. Foley resigned after suggestive emails and illicit instant messages to young men were made public. Foley wasn't the only one who left Washington. The midterm elections put Democrats back in control of both the House and Senate for the first time in a decade. Add to that, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld resigned, and President Bush's popularity hit an all-time low. And in Pennsylvania, the nation cringed at the horrors inflicted by a deranged gunman on Amish schoolgirls. 5 were killed and 6 others wounded by truck driver Charles Roberts in a brutal, sexually motivated schoolhouse massacre. With flames shooting out of a Manhattan high-rise, memories of 9/11 briefly flashed through the minds of New Yorkers. It wasn't terrorism, but rather New York Yankees pitcher Corey Lidle and another man piloting a small plane that hit the building. Both men died in the accident that apparently resulted from pilot error. In California, investigators say arson is to blame for a massive wildfire that killed 5 firefighters. Raymond Euler was eventually arrested and charged with murder. For those who are counting, the United States population is now 300 million. Despite predictions for another active season, not one of them had to deal with a hurricane this year. But the year did end with a bang. A nighttime shuttle launch that had NASA glowing and the country beaming. Drew Levinson, CBS News, New York.
Well, overseas, 2006 was a turbulent year of political upheavals and widespread violence, headlined, of course, by the war in Iraq.
CBS's Charlie D'Agata has the International Year in Review.
2006 began with a moment many in the Middle East never thought possible. The militant group Hamas sweeping to victory in Palestinian elections. It sent shockwaves throughout Israel, which was in the middle of its own political transition after Prime Minister Ariel Sharon fell into a coma. In March, Ehud Olmert officially took over and was soon facing a contentious neighbor. Iran called for Israel to be wiped off the map and appeared closer than ever to developing its own nuclear bomb, a scenario a staunch President Bush called unacceptable. The same word he used to describe the deteriorating situation in Iraq, which was fast spiraling towards civil war. Unprecedented sectarian violence between Sunnis and Shiites left tens of thousands of Iraqis dead, and the U.S. military death toll topped more than 2,900. As casualties mounted in Iraq, President Bush and British Prime Minister Tony Blair found themselves under attack at home, where critics stepped up their calls for a plan that would eventually get troops out. CBS News fell victim to Iraq's violence, too. Cameraman Paul Douglas and soundman James Brolin were killed in a car bomb attack in Baghdad. Correspondent Kimberly Dozier was critically injured, but is well on the road to recovery. In May, violence spiked in Sudan's Darfur region, where ethnic fighting has killed some 200,000 people in the past 3 years. A 3-week conflict between Israel and Lebanon was sparked when Hezbollah militants kidnapped 2 Israeli soldiers. The fighting left some 800 people dead.
By summer's end, a battle of a different kind was being waged here in Britain. A preemptive strike on Muslim extremists, authorities say, were planning to blow planes bound for America out of the sky.
Hundreds of planes were grounded in Britain and Europe, and dozens of suspects were arrested. In Cuba, Fidel Castro handed power to his brother Raul after being hospitalized for intestinal surgery. In early October, North Korea claimed to have tested its first nuclear weapon, testing the patience of the U.S. and much of the world. Finally, furious to the finish, Saddam Hussein was dealt a death sentence for ordering the execution of 148 Shiites more than 2 decades ago. Charlie Daggett, CBS News, London.
Straight ahead, we'll remember some of those we lost this year, including a former president.
And it was a year full of ups and downs for Governor Fletcher. We'll take a look back when we return.
"2006 was a huge year in politics. Voters had to sift through the largest ballot in Kentucky history.
When the dust cleared, several new faces emerged and some longtime incumbents were without a job. For Governor Fletcher, it was a year full of twists and turns. Early in the year, he was hospitalized twice, first after gallbladder surgery and later following a potentially life-threatening blood clot. A special grand jury indicted the governor on charges of violating state hiring laws. Charges were later dismissed in a settlement with prosecutors. Fletcher chose Robbie Rudolph as his running mate for his 2007 re-election bid after Steve Pence decided he didn't want to run with Fletcher. 2007 promises to be another interesting political year, with the governor's race taking center stage. Well, we lost several familiar faces in 2006.
Let's take a moment to remember some of those who may be gone, but who brought us so much during their lifetime.
What am I gonna do? Having you was all I ever wanted. Where am I gonna go to feel the way I felt inside your arms? Still my life is better loving you as I do. Thanks for being with me, darling. Thanks for being you. Oh, I'm never gonna say goodbye. Say goodbye. It's something I can't bring myself to do. 'Cause as long as I don't say goodbye, darling, I know part of me will always be with you. Oh, I'm never gonna say goodbye. Say goodbye. It's something I can't bring myself to do. 'Cause as long as I don't say goodbye, darling, I know part of me will always be with you. With you.
2006 brought us many stories and many characters in the news, perhaps none quite as, well, creative as our own John Sondheim.
When we hear about an odd or funny story in the region, we always know who to send out to cover it. Now John takes us on a lighthearted journey of Eastern Kentucky this year in only a way that he can.
2006. What an amazing year it's been. I know that I've certainly met some amazing people, heard my fair share of interesting stories this year, which is why I wanted to share my 2006 with you. Let's roll them. Everyone loves celebrities. Some are beautiful, some maybe not so much. But some notable stars that made their way to Eastern Kentucky this year include MTV's Don Vito.
Oh, come to Perry Park here. Oh, we're having a party here. Oh.
A man known as much for his award-winning work on MTV's Jackass and Viva La Bam as he is for his way with words.
Have all kind of bands. The best show ever. Yo, come to Berry Park.
Some 2006 celebrity passings, such as the death of Don Knotts, better known as Mayberry Deputy Barney Fife, allowed us a chance to visit some new places, which, of course, begs the age-old question, how many Barneys are actually out there? Some locals hit the big time this year. So whether you know her as Miss Kentucky, Miss USA, or, hopefully, Miss Sunheim, this is Tara Elizabeth Connor. And, at least in my mind, a love connection was born. Oh, come on, how could you not see the sparks between us? Maybe I just need to cool off. You know, sometimes people can move you, but sometimes it takes something a little more mythical, even in a Walmart parking lot. To make dreams come true. Samuel Rose got his fantasy fulfilled with a ride in the Dukes of Hazzard car, the General Lee.
And although I didn't get my Dukes of Hazzard fantasy fulfilled today,
I still had fun in 2006.
the highlight of this park is a new 18-hole championship disc golf course. 4.
Living and working in a place that was recently immortalized in song. This is the song, God Bless the City of Hazzard.
High in the mountains is a wonderful place with a
Yes, Hazzard, Kentucky now has its own song.
Kentucky State.
So perhaps I've said enough for this year, and it's better I just ride off into the sunset. Oh, wrong direction. Let me try that again. Oh, boy. For the 2006 year in review, I'm John Sunheim, WYMT Mountain News.
I'll put this in. This will be
No, there is one guy who loves his job.
Yeah.
John always has so much fun.
I don't think he was a very experienced horse rider.
No. Well, marquee weddings, nasty splits, expanding families, and controversies that kept us talking were all part of Hollywood's reality show of 2006.
CBS's Terry Okita looks back at the year in entertainment.
In 2006, Tinseltown said Buonasera to a star-studded celebrity union.
It's the wedding of the year.
The multi-million-dollar glamour fest co-starred Little Surrey Cruz, who made this glossy world debut, as did Brangelina's cover girl, newborn Shiloh Jolie Pitt.
I've been waiting for this.
Brooke Shields, Gwyneth Paltrow, Donald Trump, and Britney Spears all added to their families.
Don't worry, Dave, it's not yours.
As did Madonna, who critics say fast-tracked the adoption of an African baby. Anna Nicole Smith gave birth to a girl, but just days later, her 20-year-old son died of a drug overdose.
And then there were the controversies. There's an old saying in Hollywood, any news is good news. But really?
Oh, you threatening me? What's he with that?
Seinfeld's Michael Richards admits losing it when he called hecklers the N-word. Mel Gibson also offended many with his anti-Semitic tirade following his drunk driving arrest.
I've maintained my innocence.
And public outcry forced an end to a book interview deal called If I Did It by O.J. Simpson. He speculated on how he would have committed the murders of ex-wife Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman.
This perhaps sinks to, even for him, an all-time low.
Crime doesn't pay, but it does keep your name in headlines. Kate Moss questioned for drugs, George Michael arrested for drug possession, and Paris Hilton for DUI.
Paris, how are you feeling, Paris?
Keith Urban's battle with the bottle led to rehab just weeks after his wedding to Nicole Kidman, and where some celebrity marriages begin, others end.
Hey, Brittany!
K-Fed became FedEx to Spears. Reese Witherspoon and Ryan Phillippe, Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown, Pam Anderson and Kid Rock, and Charlie Sheen and Denise Richards all cut ties. And then there's Paul McCartney and Heather Mills' nasty divorce.
Mr. Trump, I want to thank you.
One partnership that has survived, for now, the one between Miss USA, Tara Connor, and pageant co-owner Donald Trump. He came close to saying, "You're fired," after the then underage beauty queen behaved less than royally. After a year of shakeups, breakups, and new beginnings, who can wait for the Hollywood dramas of 2007? Terry Okita, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Stay with us. We'll wrap things up after the break.
Well, this year, WYMT started airing Kentucky Afield, a popular outdoor show.
We're going to leave you tonight with some of the beautiful scenery their cameras have captured in eastern Kentucky over the past few months. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.